Again, I'm going to paint around here, and you can see as I paint the softening effect is starting to appear. I'm just going to increase the hardness of my brush a little, and I can simply paint with the brush, painting white onto the mask, and that reveals the nice soft skin without actually revealing it over the eyes, which we don't want. Okay, so I'm just going to show you a small section of this, just so you get the idea of what's going on. Again, you can see as I paint that the smooth skin is appearing exactly where we want it. So of course we wouldn't paint over the mouth, we'd just concentrate on the skin areas just to bring that nice softness. And you can see the contrast between this side of the face that hasn't got the smoothing applied and this side that has. Now we can still temper this effect further by reducing the opacity of the softened layer, and we can do that by clicking on it in the layers palette, and we'll just simply reduce the opacity to make the effect rather more subtle. And you can see as I'm reducing that there, the amount of smoothing is getting less, and I think somewhere around about 75% will be perfect for that. We'll call that 80%. So you really need to judge this visually as you go. Let me just zoom out of that a little, and you can see from here just what a difference that's made. This area of skin is now nice and smooth, and all the rest of the skin still has that rather unsightly texture. So you need to complete that over all the areas of the skin. Okay, so now I've completed my layer mask for the skin smoothing, and I've literally just gone to layer and flatten image to flatten the image again down to a simple background layer. Now when we're dealing with portraits and skin tones, you'll often find that the shadow areas of the skin tones themselves are a little too dark, and the highlights can be a little too bright. So this is something else that we often need to correct. Now to do this in Photoshop Elements, we need to use a command called Adjust Color Curves, which is similar to the Curves command in Photoshop proper, although it's not quite as accurate, but we can still get a really good result with this. So again, working on the flattened background layer, we'll go to Enhance, Adjust Color, and Adjust Color Curves. Just wait for the dialog to appear here. Now we want to adjust the shadows and make them lighter in this, so we can grab this slider here and simply drag it to the right to make these shadow areas lighter. Now this dialog is a little small, to say the least, and it can be really difficult to see with very fine adjustments exactly how much of a difference you're making, unless you make major adjustments, which will be too heavy-handed for this. But what we can do is kind of move this dialog out of the way a little, wherever is comfortable, and your changes will be updated in the actual workspace of Photoshop Elements, so we can see just what a difference we're making. Again here, as with all work on portraits, you only want to be making very small adjustments so we don't introduce areas of grey. That's lightened those shadows nicely, and I just want to darken the highlights very slightly indeed, and again you can see this reflected in the workspace itself, so we can simply drag that down a little. Again, I'm going to brighten my shadows just a tiny bit, and that looks pretty good. And you can see the similarity to the curves command in Photoshop is illustrated by the small curves graph here. So once you've lightened your shadows and darkened your highlights and you're happy, simply click OK.